that the producers, far left-wing activists in Hollywood, are turning on her, and Disney has canceled all of Rachel Zegler's appearances on their media platforms. Kind of tough.
What if Disney's most cherished fairy tale is on the brink of shattering its own legacy? That's the question burning through Hollywood right now, ever since a whirlwind of controversy engulfed the live-action Snow White. In the wake of furious social media debates, public backlash, and a surprising new announcement, fans are left wondering if the iconic story they've adored for decades can ever return to its original sparkle. Critics say Disney may have shattered the magic beyond repair. Others claim that there's still a glimmer of hope buried beneath the wreckage. The real story behind this tumultuous remake is filled with twists you won't believe, and it all began when Disney decided to modernize a timeless tale and ended up setting the stage for one of the most dramatic controversies in recent memory. From the very first peek at this reimagined version, the stakes were obvious. After all, Snow White isn't just another movie. It's the film that launched Disney's feature-length animation legacy in 1937, an industry-defining classic that shaped the studio's identity. So when Disney began promoting their modern interpretation, nobody expected the fierce backlash that would follow. Detractors accused the studio of dismantling everything that made Snow White special: its innocence, its romance, and even its iconic dwarfs. Fans who grew up humming "Someday My Prince Will Come" felt betrayed, and a deluge of outraged comments on social media signaled major trouble ahead. Yet, it wasn't just a matter of fans disliking a new approach. One star's off-key remarks ignited a more profound outrage, fueling countless rumors about where Disney's priorities really lay. For nearly a century, Snow White has symbolized the birth of feature animation at Disney. It was Walt Disney's risky gamble, an animated film that critics once mocked as Disney's folly, only to see it conquer box offices and hearts worldwide. That legacy carried forward through generations, weaving an image of Disney as a creative powerhouse. It set the stage for classics like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and every other princess story that drew on its groundbreaking success. Messing with Snow White goes far beyond a simple remake. To many, it's like rewriting the company's founding fairy tale. If Disney stumbles here, the damage could ripple through the entire brand. This risk isn't purely financial, though money is obviously on the line. It's also about reputational capital. Snow White stands at the core of Disney's identity, complete with hand-drawn animation, a sweet romantic arc, and the definitive image of a kind-hearted princess who braves dark forests and wicked spells. Any attempt to retool that formula is bound to provoke scrutiny from loyalists. Rumors about major changes to the dwarfs, altering key musical numbers, or removing the prince from the plot had fans worried that the fairy tale they treasured was about to be replaced by a version they barely recognized. Backlash was inevitable. The moment whispers emerged of a complete overhaul, but few predicted just how big this firestorm would become. For a while, Disney's chatter around the live-action Snow White sounded like an attempt at progress. Their PR teams pitched it as a fresh take, promising to reflect modern ideals while preserving the story's spirit. At the forefront of this adaptation stood actress Rachel Zegler, who had previously gained attention for her breakout role in West Side Story. Enthusiasm initially soared. Fans were curious to see how a younger star might bring new energy to a beloved princess. Yet, as soon as Zegler started speaking publicly about the film, the mood shifted in record time. In interviews, Zegler made offhand remarks about the original storyline feeling awkward and how the prince was a guy who stalks her. Longtime Disney lovers balked. They viewed these comments as not just personal opinions, but as dismissive jabs at a classic film that carried deep childhood nostalgia. Suddenly, a wave of online resentment built up, and viewers who had once been open to change started to feel personally attacked. Adding fuel to the fire, the actress seemed unapologetic, doubling down on her stance. All over social media, fans demanded an explanation. Why hire someone who clearly disdains the source material to lead this iconic role? The film wasn't even out yet, and already, the love story between fans and Disney's newest princess was crumbling. It didn't take long for the storm to ramp up in intensity. Hashtags condemning the new Snow White shot to the top of trending charts, with critics piling on daily. YouTube videos dissected each interview clip, each social media post, until every nuance of Zegler's words was seen as further proof that the movie was doomed. Fans posted heated messages about how they felt betrayed by Disney, turning away in droves. Entertainment analysts started predicting a box office disaster, likening it to other live-action missteps that had already dented Disney's once impenetrable armor. Behind the scenes, rumors spread that executives at Disney were more than a little panicked. They had anticipated some debate. Remakes rarely please everyone, but the scale of this outrage dwarfed their worst-case scenarios. Test screenings painted a bleak picture. Audiences found the story thin, the changes jarring, and the actress's off-screen persona overshadowed any charm the film might have had. Insiders whispered that Disney's marketing teams and creative departments were locked in a battle over how to salvage the movie. One side wanted an urgent pivot, possibly toning down the modern rhetoric. The other side insisted they had to stay progressive or face accusations of backtracking. Publicly, Disney tried to maintain a confident face, insisting they believed in their new direction. But within the walls of the Magic Kingdom, tension was mounting. When official trailers and behind-the-scenes footage dropped, the conversation became unavoidable. Viewers scrutinized every detail, from new lines that heavily emphasized Snow White's desire for leadership to the drastically altered dwarfs whose images circulated online. Almost immediately, Disney's PR team scrambled to contain the fallout. Yet in doing so, they seemed to create more confusion. Some executives made statements about honoring tradition, while others championed a fully modern perspective. Media interviews with Rachel Zegler were reportedly cut back or restructured, likely to mitigate further offhand comments. This damage control reached absurd levels when Disney tried to spin the changes as a brave new choice. Fan reactions only grew more hostile. People didn't want corporate jargon about bold directions. They wanted reassurance that this cherished fairy tale was still recognizable. Meanwhile, multiple internal leaks suggested a deeper clash within Disney's hierarchy. Certain longtime creatives pushed for a partial course correction, perhaps reintroducing some classic elements, while progressive voices argued that the future of Disney princess stories demanded significant upgrades. The studio's marketing approach wavered, creating a jumbled public narrative. Instead of winning back trust, these conflicting signals ended up alienating audiences further. Then came the bombshell nobody foresaw: Disney's abrupt declaration that it would remake Snow White again, essentially hitting the reset button. Critics couldn't believe it. There was already a live-action version in the pipeline, with marketing budgets, merchandise, and a completed filming schedule. Why scrap it so suddenly? Disney labeled the decision as a corrective measure, claiming the 2025 adaptation had veered off course. Insiders called it a humiliating backpedal, a tacit admission that the highly publicized version was beyond saving. Fans were split. Some felt vindicated. They believed Disney had finally recognized their pleas. If you're going to recreate a timeless masterpiece, at least respect its soul. Others remained skeptical. After months of conflicting messaging, who's to say Disney wouldn't simply produce another misguided interpretation that disappointed viewers all over again? Still, there was hope in the air for those who adored the original story. The new announcement promised a faithful return to the 1937 blueprint, featuring the dwarfs in their classic dynamic, a genuine romance angle, and the iconic musical numbers. Disney pledged the updated approach would be more about graceful enhancements than radical rewrites. Stories soon surfaced about the commercial casualties of the ill-fated adaptation. Merchandise tying in with the version led by Rachel Zegler was supposedly piling up unsold in warehouses. Retailers who once welcomed Disney merch with open arms had slashed prices, some even returning shipments due to non-existent demand. Industry analysts called it a catastrophe, the kind of brand damage that can reverberate for years. Investors, too, had concerns, forcing Disney to acknowledge the deep cracks in their live-action strategy. At the same time, the studio's creative wings were wrestling with how to move forward. Legacy animators, some of whom had contributed to Disney's illustrious Renaissance era, were called in to offer guidance on recapturing the fairy tale atmosphere. Word leaked that these veterans pushed strongly for a classic vibe, insisting that Snow White's purity and innocence were non-negotiable. They also wanted the dwarfs' comedic camaraderie restored, not replaced by an attempt to modernize their roles beyond recognition. Overseeing everything was a new top-down strategy. No more contradictory PR statements, no more actor-led controversies on social media, and no more ideological feuds overshadowing the story's heart. Amid these drastic developments, Rachel Zegler seemed to fade from the public eye. After months of making headlines, her social media presence quieted. Speculation ran wild. Had Disney officially cut ties with her? Was she sidelined from interviews out of fear she'd stir the pot again? Some claimed she was simply lying low to let the fury blow over. Regardless of the truth, one thing was evident. The actress who once positioned herself as an outspoken figure was no longer front and center. Entertainment blogs pointed out that Disney's entire promotional push had effectively pivoted, focusing on the promise of a new, more respectful Snow White, and all but ignoring the very film that had sparked the controversy. Outside the Disney bubble, insiders in Hollywood debated whether Zegler's off-screen commentary would harm her career long-term. Some studios might shy away from potential drama, while others might welcome someone unafraid to speak her mind. Then again, nobody wants to risk a PR meltdown on a tentpole project, especially when the financial stakes are high. Fans and critics alike dissected every bit of news, trying to determine if the actress could bounce back or if she'd be forever associated with the most notorious Disney remake in recent memory. For now, her silence suggests Disney wants to keep the focus squarely on the bigger question: can the Snow White brand be salvaged? A glimmer of optimism began to circulate when the studio revealed a timeline for the new Snow White reboot, projecting a theatrical release around spring 2027. The announcement hinted at a return to whimsical forests, classic dwarfs, and the musical charm that turned the original into a phenomenon. According to leaks, Disney intends to blend nostalgic visuals with subtle modern touches, creating a story that feels inclusive yet undeniably true to its origins. Many wonder, though, if the damage has already been done. Is the brand too tarnished to recover? Disney can't afford another misfire of this magnitude. They're targeting a long runway for promotion, starting with teaser art and possible concept illustrations to test the waters with fans. Rumor has it they're also planning a renewed Snow White presence in the theme parks, an attempt to rekindle affection for the fairy tale. Public sentiment is divided. Some corners of the internet remain wary, pointing out that trust once broken isn't easily won back. Others, nostalgic for the magic of old Disney, are desperate to see the studio nail this story and prove they can still craft enchanting, family-friendly escapism. So, will Snow White's legendary charm shine once again? Or has the controversy cast a permanent shadow over Disney's original princess? For nearly a century, this fairy tale has enchanted audiences, inspiring believers that true love, kindness, and courage can conquer any evil. Yet, in the modern era, even fairy tales are subject to scrutiny, demands for representation, and debates about updating the past. Disney's quest to balance classic appeal with evolving sensibilities has never been more challenging or more crucial. With millions of dollars on the line and an ocean of fan expectations looming, Disney's next move must be bold, careful, and heartfelt all at once. Rachel Zegler's part in this saga will remain an unresolved point of contention. Regardless of where her career goes, she has become a symbol of how quickly public opinion can turn, and how a single misjudged comment can reshape an entire project's destiny. Meanwhile, the studio stands at a crossroads, juggling the need for fresh storytelling with the necessity to preserve the heart of what made Disney the global powerhouse it is. The final outcome may define how future generations perceive not only Snow White, but also the entire lineage of Disney princesses. Ultimately, the question remains: when we revisit the fairest one of all, will we even recognize her? Or has the relentless pursuit of modern relevance stripped her of the qualities that once captured our imaginations? For now, fans can only watch and wait, hoping that somewhere between corporate strategy and creative vision, Disney remembers the magic that started it all. A magic that resides in timeless stories told with sincerity and wonder. If the new adaptation truly embraces that essence, the box office might see a triumphant return to form, and perhaps Snow White will once again cast a spell that leaves viewers captivated and hopeful. But if Disney repeats the same mistakes, if they overpromise a blend of nostalgia and innovation only to underdeliver a coherent story, then this controversy will be more than just a cautionary tale. It will stand as a testament to how even the mightiest of entertainment giants can stumble when they lose sight of what made their classics endure for nearly a century. In the end, whether the next Snow White can reclaim its crown or whether Disney is destined to face a prolonged backlash remains to be seen. Right now, all we can do is marvel at how swiftly one actress's remarks, combined with an overconfident rewrite, brought an entertainment behemoth to its knees. The mirror on the wall doesn't lie. Disney is in the fight of its life to prove. It still understands the enchantment that made people fall in love with Snow White in the first place. Fans will watch closely for any clues that the new adaptation is genuine, awaiting those first glimpses of concept art, the official announcement of who's stepping into the lead role, and early reviews from test audiences. Will we see the dwarfs bounding across the forest in a sing-along, or will there be yet another radical revision that strips the story of its childlike wonder? Will Snow White's voice echo the sweet sincerity we remember, or will the studio's vow to include modern undertones overshadow the fairy tale feeling? What emerges could be the perfect blend of old and new, or yet another uproar that sets off an avalanche of discontent. All the while, industry leaders and film buffs are watching how Disney manages this crisis. In an age of reboots, remakes, and sequels, Snow White is both the gold standard and the cautionary example. Audiences are increasingly protective of their cherished memories, and they won't hesitate to voice outrage if those memories feel disrespected. Perhaps that's the real moral of this unfolding tale, that no property, no matter how iconic, is immune to modern controversy. From the vantage point of countless fans, all they want is to recapture that unexplainable warmth that comes from seeing a story that's as comforting as a lullaby. They yearn for the gentle kindness of Snow White, the friendly banter of the wise dwarves, and the heart-fluttering promise of true love that transcends time. Yet, we live in a world where fans also clamor for representation and depth that resonates with today's values. The tightrope Disney must walk here is daunting. 1 slip could fling them back into the chaos they're working so hard to escape. As Disney sets its eyes on a spring 2027 release date, the question on everyone's mind is whether this new attempt will honor the magic that began in 1937. The creative team claims it's a return to form, complete with the forest creatures, the timeless songs, and a narrative arc that places Snow White at the heart of the action without rejecting the charm of a traditional fairy tale romance. Observers hope to see the dwarfs restored to their iconic roles, offering humor, camaraderie, and that nostalgic sense of wonder. Analysts predict a massive marketing campaign, complete with exclusive park events, merchandise lines that lean heavily into nostalgic designs, and carefully curated press appearances by the eventual cast, who will presumably undergo meticulous media training to avoid repeating any controversies. All eyes remain on that mirror, waiting for an honest reflection of where Disney stands. If this next venture flops, some believe it could spell the end of Disney's unstoppable reputation for princess-centric storytelling. Others argue that this brand is too big to fail. Yet even the biggest brands have fallen from grace when they veer too far from what made them legendary. Perhaps the ultimate revelation here is that no classic is beyond reinterpretation, but the reinterpretation must be carried out with the utmost reverence. Some fans suspect the cultural climate also plays a role in how these debates unfold. The days of one-size-fits-all storytelling are long gone. Viewers, empowered by social media platforms, want their voices heard and validated. If Disney disregards that, the audience simply moves on, taking their ticket money and merchandise purchases elsewhere. This dynamic is precisely why the Snow White fiasco has become such a cautionary tale, because it's about more than just a single movie. It's about the relationship between a massive entertainment machine and the people who grew up believing in its tales. Could the next few years become a renaissance for Disney if they successfully right this ship? It's possible. With the right casting, a balanced script, and a marketing campaign that highlights tradition without ignoring the audience's current values, Snow White might just become the comeback story of the decade. The challenge lies in ensuring the film's star respects and understands the iconic role she's undertaking. Casting directors now have a delicate mission: find someone who can convincingly embody the innocence of the original princess while portraying enough complexity to satisfy modern storytelling standards. Too heavy a hand either way, and the fragile equilibrium could shatter, dredging up the same controversies all over again. Through it all, there's a quiet optimism pulsing. In fan communities that were once brimming with anger, a portion of the Disney faithful desperately wants the studio to succeed. They remember the spellbinding atmosphere of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and want to relive it on the big screen in a state-of-the-art production that maintains the essence of a fable told for generations. The looming question, can Disney deliver? Meanwhile, the shadow of the first live-action attempt continues to loom. People haven't forgotten how it was sold, how the lead actress's disparaging remarks caused widespread disillusionment, or how the dwarves were mishandled in promotional images. The meltdown taught everyone a harsh lesson. Certain classics resonate so strongly with people's childhood memories that any perceived disregard is met with outrage. If the studio has truly learned from these mistakes, the new reboot might prove that Disney still has a firm grasp on the magic formula. If not, the brand's tumble down the rabbit hole of creative confusion could intensify, and the fiasco might become a footnote in a larger story of how the mighty can fall. For now, audiences linger in a place of suspended judgment, neither fully trusting nor entirely giving up hope. They wait for official casting announcements, set photos, perhaps a behind-the-scenes documentary that highlights the painstaking effort to capture the wonder of the original. These glimpses will either rebuild faith or confirm doubts, and Disney's entire PR department is undoubtedly working overtime to ensure it's the former. Just imagine, a few years from now, hearing the first gentle notes of "Someday My Prince Will Come" in a new trailer that captures the emotional depth and innocence that once defined the golden age of animation. If the studio can pair that nostalgia with an updated but respectful approach, the applause might be thunderous. And if they fail, the frustration will likely be deafening. It's a tightrope walk with no safety net, because the brand can't risk another colossal flop, especially not with such an iconic property. No matter the final result, Snow White has become more than a fairy tale in this modern moment. It's a litmus test for whether Disney understands how to honor the cornerstones of its legacy while carefully navigating modern cultural currents. It's an affirmation of whether a beloved classic can evolve without losing its identity. And, at its heart, it's a story about innocence triumphing over evil, a notion that has comforted audiences for decades. So as the clock ticks toward the next iteration, the world watches with a mix of excitement, skepticism, and lingering curiosity. Everyone wants to see if the studio that defined animated storytelling can breathe fresh life into the tale that started it all, or if the missteps of the past will haunt this endeavor indefinitely. After all, a mirror may shatter, but with enough patience, its shards can sometimes be pieced back together, reflecting a new image that still carries traces of the original beauty. Whether this new reflection stands as a proud beacon or a distorted echo depends entirely on the choices Disney makes in the coming months and years. Will the reimagined Snow White once again be crowned the fairest one of all? Or is this saga doomed to continue as one of Disney's greatest controversies? That answer awaits in the unfolding chapters of an unprecedented corporate scramble to recapture the elusive spark of genuine fairy tale magic. And in this era of instant feedback and widespread skepticism, only a truly enchanting final product will silence the doubters. After all, sometimes it takes more than a kiss from a prince to wake a story from its darkest slumber. It takes a studio willing to own its mistakes, celebrate its roots, and finally put the heart of the fairy tale above all else.